How did you become interested in environmental engineering?
It's a good question. I'm an engineer. I got my diploma from Montreal Engineering School in the area of electrical engineering, energy. And when I did my MBA at McGill University, the subject of my thesis was climate change.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, especially climate change and renewable energy. I did my thesis after the first oil shock. You remember in 1973, that was the Yom Kippur War. And at that time, the Arabs decided to take the petrol as a geopolitical arm. They decided to increase the cost of the oil. And at that time, we were thinking of the possibility of becoming independent from the oil. How? By creating new type of energy, by creating renewable energy. And at that same time, there was a group in Boston at MIT which wrote a book, Limit to Growth, okay, Club de Rome at that time, in order to, and this book was explaining that we cannot continue to utilize fossil fuel because eventually we will emit too much CO2 and it will create a heat trapping mechanism which will warm the planet. And at that time, there was, with the scientific community, some very knowledgeable people, expert in the field, some concern that the fact that we utilize too much fossil fuel could create an imbalance in the climate. And I was very interesting for this subject as an engineer, as an energy engineer, and at the same time I began to study the environmental impact of utilizing fossil fuel. And I said, I was quite young at that time, in '74, when I finished my MBA. I said, yes, I will work in this field and develop technologies in order to utilize new sources of energy and at the same time mitigating climate.
At the time, Jimmy Carter was our president in the United States, and I think he was talking with the Canadian government about some of these concerns as well. At that moment, he was criticized for his views. But now it seems that what was being said then is more important than ever, and there's a larger consensus. People seem to be more aware of environmental concerns.
You are absolutely right, because at that time, Jimmy Carter, back in '78, '79, he created a lot of programs in order to foster the development of new technology in order for U.S. to become energy independent. And he had at the same time the concern of having more friendly environmental technology to generate electricity with biomass, with clean coal, which is very important. He created at that time the Synfuels Corporations, which was a creature of the U.S. Department of Energy to create new technology in order to burn coal more efficiently with less pollution. He was ahead of his time, 35 years ahead of his time, and now what he was seeing as a future view is the reality. There is a consensus now on this planet, not even in USA, but in Canada, in Europe, in Asia, that we have to develop new type of technology that will enhance the environmental or minimize the environmental footprint, and at the same time to have much more efficient energy technology. And Jimmy Carter at that time was a real visionary. And he created a very important piece of legislation like the PURPA Act, the Public Utilities Regulation Purchase Act, where any owner of renewables energy power plant can sell his electricity on the grid. He was really at a futuristic president, and it's why I begin to be very interested to that type of policy, and Canada follow his policy where Quebec and other Canadian provinces want to develop and implement that type of new technologies in order to preserve our planet at the end.